Hi everyone and welcome to the Curious Geographer. Today is very exciting. We're going to be joined by Royal Holloway and we're going to learn about their fantastic geography degree and the options for you to study there after A-levels. So if you haven't already, check out the poster over here and the QR code. We're kind of coming to the end of our university lectures, but there are some other live interviews coming up in the future for you to check out. So today we are joined by Professor Ian Candy and also Dr. Alistair Pinkerton, who are going to tell us a little bit about what their role is at Royal Holloway and also why you should study geography there. So if I pass over to Ian first, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about what is your area of interest as a geographer and who you are in the department.
Great. Well, thanks very much for inviting us along, Ellie. So my name's Ian. I'm a professor of geography. I'm a physical geographer. So I really got into geography actually when I was a GCSE student. I can still remember the moment I decided I wanted to become a geographer, which was GCSE geography project, dropping oranges into rivers, measuring how quickly it took them to float downstream. And that was the moment I just fell in love with geography. And that's carried on ever since. So I did my degree at Royal Holloway, so I've been here for quite a while now. I love my experience here. And what I didn't realise before I came to Royal Holloway, that Geography Department at Royal Holloway is one of Europe's leading centres for studying past climate change. So one of the things that Royal Holloway Geography is very famous for is studying how climates change in the past and how we can use an understanding of past climate change to understand how climates might change in the future. And that I didn't know anything about that before I came to university, but I really got infused by that as a subject. And that's what I carried on and started to study. So I work in the field of climate change, and a lot of what I do is based around understanding how climates change in the past, and then trying to use that to understand what makes the climate change which is happening at the present day different. How do we know that climate change is because of humans? Well, we know that because what we're seeing at the present day can't be seen in any period over the last 2 million years. And I work on climate change in Western Europe. I've worked in the Middle East. I work in areas like the Sahara, North Africa. And in those areas, I look at how deserts change over time. So deserts expand and contract. Sometimes the Sahara becomes green, these periods known as Green Sahara, African humid period. And I've also worked in the tropical regions of Africa, so areas like Zambia and Senegal, to try and understand how landscapes respond to climate change. So climate change is really my area of interest and the impact that has on the way that the Earth's surface works.
Wow, I know a lot of students are interested in that at A-level. We're all the way through school, and I can't believe that you also went to Royal Holloway, which is quite amazing as well.
Well, I think so the thing which is very funny is that I'm being taught by some of the people, I teach with some of the people who taught me as an undergraduate. And one of the things we do at Royal Holloway is in most normal years, we take our entire first year away to southern Spain for a week. Everyone gets to know one another. You get to study the geography of Spain. And some of the people I've taught on that Spain field trip with were the people who taught me on the Spain field trip 25, whatever it was, years ago.
That's really amazing. So it shows how great the place is to study, also if you're advocating it for staying there. Fantastic. We are also joined by Dr. Pinkerton, who's going to tell us a little bit about what his area of study is. So Al, would you like to introduce yourself for us?
Yes, Ellie, thank you so much for having us here. So, as you said, my name's Alistair Pinkerton, and a bit like Ian, I've been a geographer, frankly, for as long as I can remember. I went to a Scottish school, so I did standard grades and hires, as they were called. But a bit like Ian, I remember dropping oranges into rivers as well. And at school, I was very much more of a physical geographer, and I used to absolutely adore kind of glaciers and. I don't know if anyone adores the carbon cycle, but I really enjoyed doing that kind of thing. And it was actually only when I went to university. So I went to St Andrews University to study geography. And because it was a Scottish university, I also did psychology and medieval history and various other things when I was there. But I became a human geographer really when I was at university. I just really enjoyed and engaged with some of the big debates in relation to colonialism and imperialism and Orientalism and some of these really fascinating things that we talk about in political and cultural geography. And then I came to Royal Holloway as a master's student. So I came here to study the Cultural Geography Masters and then stayed on to do my PhD and then got a postdoctoral fellowship from the British Academy and have really been here ever since. And during that time, I made this very specific move into an area of political geography and more particularly geopolitics. So I now specialize in an area of geopolitics, which is very much about the way that power ebbs and flows around the world, the way that different countries exert influence over others. And my specialism within that subject has really focused on the British overseas territories. So I spend a lot of time in places like Gibraltar and the Falkland Islands and the sovereign base areas of Cyprus. And so this is how I occupy my time, looking at the relationship between Britain, the British overseas territories, and the kind of the lingering spectre of colonialism. And the other thing I work on is I'm really interested in the world's no man's lands. So places around the world that defy easy categorization. And I've been working on this big project over several years that culminated really last year in this amazing project with Google Arts and Culture called Portraits of No Man's Land, where we trace, a colleague and I at Durham University, trace the history of no man's lands over the past 1,000 years, from the medieval London city walls through to the First World War and through to places like the Cypriot buffer zone today, and a place on the Egypt-Sudan border where we travelled to on an expedition in 2015 called Ber Tawil, which is arguably the last truly unclaimed place left on Earth. And if you want to know more, you can ask me more about it later on in our conversation.
I'm just going to myself mute. There you go. That sounds so interesting. And yeah, and we should get you both on to talk maybe more about your area of interest, because I know a lot of students will find that interesting as well. And lots of travel, which is also, I think, quite exciting for students to actually see their lecturers actually like travel and how they collect all that data and how they understand the world. So maybe we can learn more about that another time. So
I'd be delighted to.
Brilliant. So Ian, I pass over to you for kind of the big question. Why should students pick geography, and why should they pick geography at Royal Holloway?
Great. Well, thanks very much. I mean, that's a great question. And I'm sure many people, whether you're year 13 or you're year 12, whatever stage of, thinking about university you're at, what you study at university is a key thing. I think one of the first things, one of the other things I do is I'm the admissions tutor for the department, and both me and Al have done that role. And so that means that I'm responsible for kind of looking at queries about who's applying and looking at UCAS forms and that kind of thing. And one of the things I would just say about studying at university is the crucial thing about being successful at university is doing a subject that you love. There's a very big difference between studying at university and at sixth form, and that is that you are required to do quite a lot of independent study at university. You have your lectures and your seminars which outline the key ideas, and then you have to go away and do wider reading, build up your knowledge. And it's that wider reading which is what makes you successful at university. If you love the subject that you're studying, that won't seem a chore. You'll love doing it. You'll engage in the subject. You'll study the subject in more detail. So I'd say the first thing, the reason for studying geography at university at a most basic level is study it because you love it, okay? Because if you love a subject, you're going to do well at university. And I think that goes for any subject. But if it's geography that you love, if it's geography that you're interested in, I think the great thing about geography is it's one of those subjects which doesn't hem you in, okay? Geography is a subject, opens up huge areas that you can go on and study further, or opens a huge range of different careers. And one of the things that, both myself and Al have just made the point is what we do now, we didn't realise we were interested in until we started studying geography. What you study at A level is only ever the tip of the iceberg. It's a really small fraction of what geography is. And one of the great things about studying geography at university is you suddenly get introduced to all of these different concepts that you never knew were geography. And so you suddenly start to explore all of these different areas. So it's a really broad subject. And one of the reasons I think that's so good to study at university is if you study a broad subject, it allows you to explore different areas and find the things that you love and find the things you enjoy. And that's one of the things that as a tutor at university, I really enjoy. You know, when people first arrive in tutor groups, you know, like Al and myself will have first year tutor groups. We'll chat to students in small groups across the year, get to know them really well. And when they arrive, they almost always say, I love this. And most of the time, by the end of the first year, they love something different. Now, one of the reasons that seems a bit of a broad thing to talk about, but the great thing about it is it does really make you so employable, because what employers really love about geography students is they have this really broad understanding. They have a really thorough understanding of the way the world works. And geography is both a subject that it's academic. Okay, yeah, you learn about it in lectures, you do wider reading, you write essays, but you develop all of these amazing transferable skills. A good geographer has to be able to talk about the subject. You have to do presentations. You have to have computer skills, you know, numerical skills. You have to be able to use different software packages. So you come out of a geography degree with this huge range of different skills. And if you look at statistics nationally, geography is one of the most employable disciplines. And it's because of those reasons. You know, employers look at geographers and think, wow, look at all the different things that they can do. Geography is both a science, it's an art, it's a social science, and you develop skills in all of those different areas. And I guess the final thing I would say is probably more than most other subjects at university, it's an incredibly social subject to study. You know, if you think about some subjects like English or history, you go to lectures, you might sit in small tutorials. It's really difficult to get to know other people in your year in those kind of environments. You know, almost all geography departments up and down the country are incredibly strong, friendly communities. And that's because of lots of reasons. I mean, for our own department, I've already said, you know, we take pretty much our whole first year away in a normal year. This isn't a normal year, but most years we take the whole year away to southern Spain for a week. That might be 110, 140 students all going away for a week together. 10, 15 or so members of staff go. You get to know us, we get to know you. And that sets up a really strong community dynamic in most geography departments, but particularly ours. I mean, our department is famous for its community, and that makes it such an amazing place, you know, to study. Not only do you study a subject that you love, but you have this opportunity through the way that you study to make friends for life.
Fantastic. And I think the field trip as well is actually so good for that bonding, and actually talking about that real social aspect. It is so nice because you do go to lectures, you do meet people, and I know people, well, I've got a really strong group of geography friends from university as well, so it does really stick with you. So all fantastic aspects of it. Ian, would you mind telling us a little bit about I think the location of Royal Holloway is quite interesting, being like close to London. How does that maybe, what's like the university actually like physically like for students when they're thinking about applying there?
Sorry, was that to me, Ellie?
Yeah, sorry, yeah, and if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. So Royal Holloway, it's part of the University of London, but it's quite a strange one because it's not in central London. It's out in a small town called Egham, which is next to Windsor and close to Heathrow Airport. So it's just outside of London, and it's a campus university, and it's got a very historic building. So it has this big red brick, amazing kind of mock French chateau building built in the Victorian era by Thomas Holloway, who the university is named after. And it's set in this green leafy campus. And I think one of the things that I would definitely say to anybody who is applying to university in this COVID year, I think one of the things which is not a problem, but one of the things you have to deal with is you're not really getting the experience of visiting universities. And I think most of us who've gone through the university process know how important it is to go and visit universities before you make a decision, because you can look at somewhere online, you can look at a prospectus, but until you actually see there and go and visit us, or visit a university, you don't really get a feel for what it's like. And I know that certainly my experience of coming to Holloway, it's this leafy green campus in the Surrey countryside. It has this amazing, what as a sixth former, I always thought a university would be like this big red brick Victorian building. And yet situated on that campus are also state-of-the-art science, social science, arts buildings. So it has this incredible mixture of the old and the new, as you would hope a university would have. Now, it's not a huge university. You're probably talking about, all told, somewhere around 10,000 students. And of course, that might sound like a lot, but compared to most universities, that's pretty tiny. And the majority of people in their first year will live on campus. There's enough halls to cope with that. And so what you get if you come to Holloway is this really friendly campus environment. Now, I can speak from experience. Why did I choose to come to Royal Holloway? Well, I still am, but I really was when I was a teenager. I was a really big music fan, and I wanted to be able to go into central London, and I wanted to be able to see all the gigs and all the bands I wanted to see. And so Royal Holloway, being about 40 minutes on the train away right into Waterloo, central London, that was perfect for me for that. But actually, I wanted the experience of the campus. I wanted to be on a site where that was the university, everybody was there, the union was there, the department was there. I didn't want to be in a university in a city which was spread out over numerous sites. So I had all the benefits of living in this beautiful green campus, everybody together, and that produces a wonderful dynamic, because in a city you're quite often spread out. People are spread out across the city. Sometimes it's difficult to really get together as a community, and I love that community feel, but also being close to a major world city with all the attractions that had. And I think for a lot of students who come to Royal Holloway, that's exactly what they're looking for and what they get.
Yeah, it really seems like the kind of best of both worlds. And I know that a few students, I always teach in London, and normally London universities, they quite like being, but actually you kind of get that campus, you almost feel like you're away, you get to live away from home. But if you do want to be close to family, you can still close to London for all those reasons. So sounds fantastic. So we're going to pass over to Al. If you would mind telling us a little bit about what with students, there's lots of courses and lots of options for students. Can you tell us a bit more about these courses and what maybe students expect to study when they're at Royal Holloway?
Sure, no problem at all. I think the first thing to say is that if you look on the UCAS website, you'll basically see 4 different routes through our program. We have 3 years, but we also have a 4-year option that I can talk about in just a second. So we have a BA Geography, a BSc Geography, a BA Human Geography, and a BSc Physical Geography. And I guess, like some other places, it doesn't really matter actually which one of those 4 degree options you apply to, because once you get to Royal Holloway, you can ultimately choose to specialise in the area of geography that you like best once you're here. So we won't hold you to the decisions that you have perhaps made over the last month or so, or will be making over the next few months. You can come to us, and if you apply for the BSc Physical Geography but find yourself completely enraptured by human geography in your first year, you can of course switch your degree to that during the 3 years. In fact, you can change your degree up until about 4 months before graduation, which would come in nearly 4 years' time. So it's hugely flexible. Now, in the first year, everybody comes to the university, to the department, and they study the same thing. So it's a mix of physical and human geography. And that's really important because we need to lay the groundwork. Geography, even though it has these 2 wings to it, it's really important that those people who are passionate physical geographers know something about the human implications of, for example, climate change. And similarly, human geographers need to know something about the kind of the physical drivers of climate change, as well as the human implications of it. So it's really important that we lay those foundations in the first year. After the first year, you can choose to specialize in the area of geography that you really like. So in the first year, it's not just about laying those particular foundations, it's also about making you into a really fantastic researcher. So Ian mentioned before that geographers are the most employed and the most employable non-vocational graduates in the country, or certainly right up there. employers love geographers, and they don't just love them because of the subject that you're studying and the intellectual material that you're engaging with. They love it because you are all fantastic researchers by the time you finished your undergraduate degree. Because part of any good geography program is giving you the skills and techniques that you need in order to be able to look at the world, to draw data from it, from human sources or physical sources, to be able to analyze that data, compile it, write about it meaningfully, represent it visually, cartographically, and then ultimately in the third year to produce something like a dissertation. But you can only produce that dissertation if we start embedding those skills and techniques right at the first year. And that's what we do. And we ask you to rehearse that also through local and overseas fieldwork. So we are so lucky. We have got Runnymede Meadow about a mile away from us, the place where Magna Carta was sealed, of course, in 1215. Absolutely fantastic site where we can start rehearsing some of those skills that you'll need. We then take you to Spain. Every student in the first year comes with us to southern Spain, to a town called Nerja in Andalusia in southern Spain, where, again, you practice those skills and techniques and you write up a report. And we then build on that in second year, and you ultimately produce a dissertation in third year, which is really the apotheosis of everything that we ask you to do as a geographer, combining the intellectual lessons you learn with the skills and techniques training that you have as well. At second year, we also have fieldwork, and that's far more related to the area of geography that you've chosen to specialize in. So, for example, I take my students to Cyprus, somewhere, of course, that I have worked in terms of my research anyway. And we go to Cyprus and we work with the United Nations inside the internationally controlled buffer zone between North Cyprus and South Cyprus. So we're using our own research contacts to give our students an amazing experience. It's a divided island. It's a fractured society. It's an amazing place to study political geography and geopolitics. But equally, we've got an amazing trip to Sicily for physical geographers. We have a trip to Malawi for those geographers who are interested in development and the challenges of the global south. And for students who are interested in cultural geography, there's an amazing trip also to New York. But we also have local fieldwork as well. So for those who are disinclined to travel for whatever reason, we use our global city on our doorstep here in London for fieldwork as well. And then to say, by the time you get to the third year, you are really specializing in the area of geography that you have loved best. And so at third year, we've got something like 27 different options courses that you can choose, and you take your pick, like a pick and mix of the courses that you want to do best. And I think it's about 6 different courses that you choose at that level. You can choose to specialize entirely in physical geography, entirely in human geography, or some students like to retain a balance between both subjects, studying, for example, the politics of climate change, as well as some of the physical drivers of climate change. But I mean, some of the courses, and I can just kind of give you a sense, you've got biogeography, managing river environments, volcanoes, arid Africa, wetland environments. Those are all on the physical geography side of things. And then in terms of human, you've got critical GIS and the GeoWeb, or the cultural imagination of nature, or regeneration and urban policy, exploration science and the making of empire, and my subject, which is geopolitics of media and communications. So a vast spread of courses that I think should whet any appetite.
Can I just add something on there? Yeah, so one of the things that Al's mentioned a couple of times there is, Al takes students to Cyprus because he researches in Cyprus. I go on the Sicily field trip, but the Sicily field trip's led by Simon Blockley, who works on volcanoes, has done a lot of research on, the volcanic history of the Mediterranean. I think one of the things that we should also mention about Royal Holloway, which is very special, is we're one of the very best research geography departments in the country. We're famous for being a community. We've got, really good national student satisfaction scores every year for our teaching. But the other thing about us is we are, in these government rankings, we're joint second in the country of all geography departments in terms of research. What that means is every lecturer or professor you're taught by is a world expert in her or his field. Okay, now that's really crucial because, like Al said, you're going to Cyprus. by somebody who researches in Cyprus, but a world expert in that subject, you know. And I think one of the things about studying geography at university is that thing about being taught by someone who's researching the subject at the cutting edge. And I think particularly when you get to the third year, what that means is you're not being taught by someone who's read about the subject in a book, but you're being taught by someone who's actively developing the subject. And that just really allows the research or the teaching that you get to be right at the cutting edge of where the subject is now.
I think, yeah, I'd say like that research-led is what makes it like so interesting for students, and also like so inspirational also to hear what lecturers get up to and also go to their places of study. There was a question that's come through, and I was meant to say actually as well, if anybody does have questions, please put them in the comments so we can try and answer them in this session, which should hopefully help you out if you are thinking about applying, or you might have already applied. So the question asks, what is the difference between the human geography course and the geography BA course? I don't know if you want to answer.
Shall I? Yeah, I can pick up on that. No problem at all. I think the truth is that there doesn't need to be a difference there at all if you don't want there to be a difference. Those people who graduate with the human geography BA, they will have had to take a preponderance of human geography courses during their time with us. So you can only graduate with that if you have done mostly human geography courses, and that goes for the BSc Physical Geography as well. You've got to do mostly physical geography courses. But what these different titles represent are different kind of pathways through the subjects that we offer. So with a BA geography, we're not going to hold you to any particular choices. You can choose to study any part of the geography program from first year all the way through to the third year level. You can do your dissertation in any part of the discipline as well. But in theory, somebody could have done exactly the same subjects and graduate with either the BA geography or the BA human geography. And ultimately, it comes down to a choice. And that is, the question is from Tulasi. So Tulasi, if you think that having a BA human geography would be really helpful on your degree certificate because you think that would help you get into the job that you wanted, whether that might be with the civil service or with a museum or a cultural institution or whatever that may be, then you can choose to graduate with that BA human geography. If you would like to have a more general geography degree because you think that would be helpful to you, then you can graduate with that. As I say, we're not going to hold you to those choices that you're making now. So it doesn't really matter what you put on your UCAS form between now and mid-January. You can always change that degree designation to suit the choices that you make while you're with us. Yeah. And Ellie, I just noticed another question has come in as well about a placement year. So shall I just follow on?
Yes, you can follow on, or Ian can say about placement year, whoever.
I'll pass over to Ian.
Okay, so yeah, so we this is something that has only really come into existence at Royal Holloway in the last couple of years. Okay, so it used to be that as a department, you could always do a study abroad year, and that would be a extra year. Normally, between your second and third year of study, you would go and study abroad for a year. But to try and increase employability for a long time, what we've done is that third year dissertation, that third year research project that Al's talked about, it's developed a strand called a placement dissertation. So as researchers, as academics, we have links with lots of companies, lots of associations. So it could be things like the Body Shop, it could be things like the British Geological Survey, the British Antarctic Survey, or charities such as Street Invest. And people could choose their dissertation to do their dissertation in association with one of those companies, which means effectively you're carrying out a research project just like anybody else, but it's associated with a company. It gives you direct experience. And that's something really powerful to put on your CV. And you can still do that as part of our degree program. But what the college has brought in now, university-wide, is an opportunity to have a third year as a placement. Now, one of the things which is a little bit difficult to talk about it now is this was only introduced a couple of years ago. So our current second year are applying for this right now. So we don't have huge numbers of examples to give you about what people have done, but you effectively have three options. It can be a year abroad, studying abroad. It can be a year placement with a company or a business, or it can be a year of doing voluntary work. Okay, so you might be working with a charity, or you might be volunteering, and all of those work as an extra year. So you would do your first and second year as everyone else, then you would do a placement year, then you would come back and do your final year. Now, effectively, if you wanted to study abroad, well, effectively, as a cliche, the world is your oyster. Okay. Now, I would say that the majority of our students who do a year studying abroad tend to go to English-speaking countries. So lots of people go to places like Canada and Australia, but you don't have to be restricted to those areas. With the placement, so the placement with a company, with industry, the university doesn't have like a big list of placements which it hands out. But what it does, the university, is it supports you in helping you to find your placement. So we have a really good career service on campus here, and they work with you to try and set up that year in industry. And the voluntary scheme, where you work with a charity, works along a similar line. So I know that there are certainly some of my tutees are planning to do a study abroad year, and others of them are planning to try and get placements with things like alternative energy companies and things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of possibility. Again, we don't have a degree that you apply for which says geography with a year in industry, and that means that effectively it's open to anybody to apply for. You make the decision once you arrive if you think it's the right thing for you, and sometimes it really is the right thing for you to do. Some people really want to get that extra experience, do something different. A lot of time, actually, what you find is that people get so involved in their studies, and particularly in a strong community environment like Royal Holloway Geography, they develop such a good group of friends, and then they realise that by doing a year away, when they come back, all of their friends will have graduated. Actually, they decide they'd prefer to carry on with their studies. So it's entirely up to you. You don't have to apply for it before you come to Royal Holloway. You think about it during your beginning of your second year. And if you're interested in taking it further, you do that in kind of now, really. This is when our students are thinking about applying for it.
Brilliant. And that just seems, I think, having the potential of doing that is just such an exciting part, because when you're 18, you don't know whether you maybe want to go abroad, or you don't know what you might be interested in studying, or whether it's going to benefit you as well. And going somewhere like, if you can go to Australia or Canada for a year, it's such a good opportunity to do that within the almost like safety net of university, where you know you're going to be coming back. So yeah, all exciting things to look forward to when the students go on their year abroad, and it'll be great to hear about more of their experiences when they come back from it as well. There's just been a few other questions come through, so and I was also responding to them, but I think this one might be quite good to hear if it's possible, and if not, feel free to direct students to the website. But the entry requirements overall, would you mind telling those for our students who are watching?
Sure, I can leap in on that one. So what we ask for is, we have a range. So we ask for anything between AAB and ABB. And the ABB in particular is something like the extended project in the mix as well. The extended project, which I know that not all schools offer, is really a fantastic preparation for university level geography. So that's why we dropped that down to ABB. And so that's what we're looking for. In terms of the headline grade, I think the other thing that can help support that is, frankly, a really good personal statement that just talks about why you in particular really love and engage in geography as a subject. Ian and I often talk about what makes a really good personal statement, and Ian has got some great training courses that he gives to people when they come to visit us. And I think the one thing that he and I both have seen over the years is the way, and this is no offense to teachers at all, Ellie, but personal statements are so often, they're turned into fairly generic statements because they're edited so often, and careers advisors tell people, you've got to get this little extra bit of information in, and suddenly everyone's personal statements looks remarkably the same. And so what we love to see are personal statements that are truly personal and that really do reflect on somebody's own interest in geography. A little bit like Ian and I were saying at the start of this session, where does that interest in geography come from? And to try and really detect the enthusiasm for geography in that statement. So yes, we've got those prerequisites of grades, but it's also wonderful to see enthusiastic geographers writing enthusiastically about themselves and their love of geography in those statements as well.
Brilliant. Those are really good tips. I know students always like to hear from universities in particular what they think makes a good personal statement as well. Brilliant. There was also one thing which I know we haven't talked about before, so I'm just going to just see so you can see how this goes, this question. But we put on our notes that about geography for school lectures. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that, and can students access that, or is that something that teachers can access for the students?
Ian, do you want?
Yeah,
to
I
go?
mean, I can chat through that. So effectively, what we, as a university, as a department, what we've run for a long time is what we used to call Monday night lectures. So a few times a term, we would have a lecture on a Monday night, and we would invite people, students, school children or sixth formers to come in and hear about research done in the department which relates to your A-level syllabus. Now, of course, with COVID, that just became impossible. And we realised as well that lots of students possibly couldn't afford to come across or would struggle to get across. So what we've done is we've moved that online. Okay, and what we've done across this term is we've produced 4 online talks from members of academic staff. So I did one on drylands in a changing world. Alistair did one on geopolitics of superpowers. Bethan Davis, a senior lecturer in the department, she did her talk on glaciers in a changing world. And right at the end of this term, David Gilbert, who's a professor in the department, will do one on sense of place and the geographies of place. And effectively, after each of those, so we release those on a Monday evening. And then the Monday after, we do a question and answer session. So we ask for people to send in questions relating to the topic, relating to our talk, and we do an online session. And then after they're delivered, you can watch online via Facebook. But also, once they've been recorded, they're put up on our Facebook page, the Royal Holloway Geography Facebook page, and also on our YouTube channel, which Alistair has provided a link for. And effectively, you can watch those at any time you want. And they've proven really popular. Al's talk on superpower geopolitics within about a month has been watched over 3,000 times online. And what we've specifically tried to do is link what we do as a department to what sixth formers are studying at A-level geography. So hopefully there'll be something in there which is not only enjoyable to watch, but is relevant to your studies. And I know that next term, certainly some of the topics we've got coming up there'll be a talk on volcanoes, there'll be a talk on regeneration and urban geography and things like that. So all of those will be next term as well. There'll be 4 more online next term.
Brilliant. So the Facebook page and YouTube channel for students to find out more. That sounds fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah, Ellie, as well as the Facebook page, we're also putting all of the talks that we're streaming live on Facebook, we're putting them on YouTube as well, so that they're all there for everybody to see as an archive.
Fantastic. That sounds brilliant. There's a quick question also just about kind of JogSoc. Is there any kind of societies that students can get involved with?
Yeah, we have the most amazing geography society in this department. I mean, it's won the University Students' Prize of the year, several times over the past decade. They're an amazing organisation, and they organise all kinds of events for us. So some of them are very obviously geographical. There's a geographical quiz, and there are various outings and trips. But they also organise a boat party that all staff, or that many staff and most students go to, and that typically runs in the summer of every year. Of course, it didn't run this year, so this is the first year that we haven't had that in probably about 15 years. But in a way, the JogSoc are a representative of just the amazing spirit that exists in this department, where genuinely all staff know all students and all students know all staff, and frankly, all students know everybody else. And that's largely created through field trips, but it's then sustained through the Geography Society, who do the most amazing work to keep the whole community of geography going during the 3 years. And every year they have a committee. So if you're a student, You can sign up, you can become a committee member, you can have a larger role or a smaller role, you can get involved in organising some of these events. And of course, that's a brilliant way of then boosting your CV, because let's face it, as well as doing the studies, as well as getting a really good degree, it's important to be able to show on your CV when you graduate that you've done other stuff as well. And organising a boat party for 500 people on the River Thames, budgeting it, organising it all, working out the logistics of buses and coaches and all of that kind of thing, is a great thing to put on the CV. And very often Geography Society members are people who then win geography prizes from the department at graduation as well. So it's a great thing to be involved in.
Brilliant. So lots to get involved in, kind of academia-wise and also social-wise as well. Fantastic. Well, I think we've had loads of questions from everybody watching, so thank you very much for everybody kind of feeding us some more questions. Ian or Al, do you have any kind of final words apart from we want your applications coming through and hopefully see you next year?
I guess I would just say, yeah, I mean, obviously, it'd be great for you to apply to us, but just, if you've decided to apply for geography, it doesn't matter where you apply, whatever university you're going to. The UK has some really amazing geography departments up and down the country. If you've decided that geography is a subject for you, you're going to have a fantastic 3 years, or 4 years if you have a year out, but a fantastic 3 years at university. And the only thing I would say is go into it with an open mind, because you'll be introduced to things, there'll be experiences you can take up that you would never have dreamed of. And the more you go in there with an open mind, willing to engage, the more you're going to get out of it.
And Ellie, if I could, can I just say one thing as well? Because I think this generation of students applying to university have got it really hard, because I know that not many universities are putting on the same kind of open days and applicant visit days that they traditionally do. And to be honest, those are the best way of learning whether you would enjoy being at a particular university for 3 years. So I think that means that those students who are applying to come to university starting in 2021 have got to work almost doubly hard to really do their research, look at every material going, watch every video that you can find. And if the university is running an open day or applicant visit day, try and get to it if you can, because I honestly think you will only find out if you are going to be truly happy somewhere for 3 years if you can visit it, if you can taste something of the atmosphere, if you can meet some of the staff members. Because I think that's one of the things that I really noticed when I first came to this department. It was the atmosphere of the place, the friendliness. And I could very happily see myself here for a year as a master's student. I then, of course, stayed for 3 years as a PhD student. And in fact, I've never left. And Ian has been here even longer. So there's literally something in the air about the places that you might want to visit. So if that's us, if you think that we're a place that you could imagine being for 3 or more years, then that's wonderful. But wherever it is, do go and do your research and just make sure that you're making the right choice, because the last thing you want to do is to choose somewhere and then ultimately decide it wasn't for you after 6 months.
Brilliant. Well, thank you both so much for joining us and telling us so much about Royal Holloway. It sounds really interesting, and there's so many options for students. So I hope students watching have taken a lot from this, and that those who are yet to watch it will take a lot from it when they do as well. So thank you for taking your time. I'm just going to tell everybody next week, and everybody has said thanks in the chat as well. So next week we are joined by Black geographers, which is super exciting. So we're going to be talking about a little bit of what they do, how you can get involved with Black geographers, kind of a bit about, I'll leave it to kind of for you to find out when we join them next week. But that will be at 5 o'clock next Tuesday. So for me, have a lovely week, everybody.